to make it sustainable, then you have less deforestation. Yeah? So that's important. And the other thing that I'm interested in is agricultural intensification. So do you know this term? So mainly, like recently, there has been a lot of promotion of agricultural practices that are not very sustainable, in the sense that they are, for example, monoculture, etc. So they need a lot of input from agrochemicals. Yeah? So if you have like monoculture, you need much more agrochemicals, so chemicals, fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, etc. Then if you have a system that is more complex. So agricultural intensification is the term that refers to like a reduction in vegetation complexity, so habitat complexity of the farm, and also like an intensification of the management practices, so more like use of agrochemicals, so chemical fertilizer. And you see that the intensification is much higher in the tropics, like Indonesia. Yeah? So you see that it's like there is a link between like deforestation and agricultural intensification. So this is very urgent, like in Indonesia, to or in other areas of the world, to promote sustainable farming practices, what we call sustainable farming practices. So like farming system that provide social, economic sustainability and protect ecosystem services at the same time. Yeah? So we need to find a balance between provision of ecosystem services and adding biodiversity, and at the same time giving opportunity to local farmers. Yeah? So that is what we call sustainable farming. Yeah? And that is very important, as I said before. Like if you don't do that, there will be more agricultural intensification and there will be more deforestation. Yeah? So I don't know if you know these terms, but I will put them there. So the first term to know into agroecology is agroforestry. So agroforestry is when you incorporate trees into farming mainly. So this is the general definition, agroforestry. Then there are two main terms that I use like when you talk about agroecology. One is land sharing and one is land sparing. So there are mainly two different strategies that you can use to conserve biodiversity in relation to agriculture. So the land sharing strategy is where you integrate biodiversity conservation into agricultural production. So in general, you have like biodiversity and crops in the same place. So that is called land sharing. So agroforestry is a form of land sharing. Yeah? And usually there are examples of, like usually it means that there are low yields of crops. Yeah? So when you have like a land sharing system, you also have usually lower yields than, so lower productivity than if you have like land sparing. So land sparing is when you have like a land where you only farm, so it can be quite intensive, and you have you dedicate like funds for conservation of protected area, like a forest. So for example, land sparing is where you have like a protected area, like a forest, without cultivation in there, and then next to it you have a rice field, for example. So that is an example of land sparing. So land sparing, it's not that it's not working, it's only working for some species, like for example if you have a wildcat that is only staying in the forest, or an orangutan, you really need to have a protected area. Yeah? So these are the two definitions of agroecology, let's say. And the problem is getting more complicated if you consider the crops, because different crops have different relationship between agricultural intensification and the biodiversity. So there are some crops that if you increase the yields, the biodiversity drops, for example. So you cannot have high yields and high biodiversity. So for example, corn, you cannot have a system with corn where you have also high biodiversity and high productivity. Thank you. So with corn, you have, if you increase the productivity of corn, then you cannot have biodiversity. That's it. Well, there are some crops that are like, for example, coffee, that can sustain high yields and high levels of biodiversity because they can stay under like a system that is like complex. For example, you can have trees and some trees, then you can have like some fruit trees, and then you can have coffee below it, or cocoa. So not all the crops can grow under the shade. Yeah? So that is why there is this relationship. So some crops, you can have high yields, so you can have a lot of coffee grown under the forest. But you cannot have maize, so corn grown under the forest, or rice, for example, or palm oil. Palm oil is very complicated. That is why it's very complicated to promote sustainable palm oil, because the productivity of palm oil. Hello. So the productivity of palm oil is not really. If you increase the productivity of palm oil, you cannot have good biodiversity in that, because palm oil is not growing with other trees, let's say. So you can have some islands of trees into palm oil plantation, but you cannot have palm oil under a system like under the natural forest, because it won't produce. So it will produce, but not enough. Yeah? So this is a very important relationship, like to consider. So the different crops grow better or worse under the natural forest, yeah? Or in conjunction with the trees. And what is very interesting to see is the relationship between yields and species richness, so the biodiversity level in relationship to the productivity. Yeah. So ideally we want something like that. That with an increased yield, so with increased productivity for farmers, we also have biodiversity. So that is what we want. We don't want a drop, we want a stable line. Yeah? So what we are trying to do is to study these relationships. Like, is the yields increasing? Like, is the yields, if the yields increases, do we still have biodiversity? Yeah? So by increasing the diversity of the habitat, do we still have yields so that the farmers can gain, yeah? And get their income from them? And that happens, for example, with cocoa. So you can have cocoa with high yields, and you can still have good richness. So these are just comparison between different areas with different yields and different species. So this mainly means that the cocoa can grow under the forest, mainly. Yeah? And the same with other crops, like vanilla. So they found that with the increasing yields, so below at the bottom is yields, you still have like an overall richness that is keeping the same level. Although there they are also comparing like vanilla under different systems, so you can see that the vanilla, the richness is, so like this on the left, you see that there are bars with different habitats. So like the forest has higher richness than other habitats. But overall, the right side is telling you that with the increasing yields, the richness is stable. Yeah. So vanilla can grow under the natural forest. Yeah? Why that? Because vanilla is an epiphyte, is growing on trees. Yeah? Vanilla is growing on trees. So it needs trees. Yeah? So you can have vanilla and trees, mainly. So this is all like, but the thing is that this seems simple, but farmers actually need to know this information, because otherwise they do monoculture vanilla, or monoculture coffee, or monoculture cocoa. But actually, they can have yields and biodiversity in the same place if they grow these crops. And it's not just vanilla or coffee or cocoa, but you can see that there are bananas, there are cardamom. So this is just showing that this is just comparing different agroforestry systems with different crops, and just saying that like the comparison between even the nearby forest. So some of these systems, they can have actually the richness that is similar to the forest. Yeah? So actually, if you have this system with multi-crops, so multiple crops under the forest, you can have the richness, like the richness level. So you know what is the richness? Like the number of species. Yeah, the richness of the number of species. And that's similar to the forest. Yeah? Even if some of the species are different, so you see that the similarity with the forest is like 50%. So they don't probably have the same system, but the same species, but more or less they hold the same number of species. And mainly, I've been studied a lot before the coffee systems. So coffee, hello. So why coffee? Because many producers of coffee are smallholder farmers. So if you work with coffee farmers, you also impact like many smallholder farmers. So like farmers that are small scale. So you also promote like their revenues. Yeah. So if you work with sustainable coffee, you also work to reduce like hunger or to promote like healthy systems, not just natural but also social systems. Yeah. And coffee. So you can see that there are different types of coffee. So from monoculture coffee, that is the one with a lot of agricultural intensification. So you have a complete reduction of the habitat and a lot of input from the agrochemicals. Then you have shaded monoculture. So monoculture, so coffee with a few fruit trees, for example. So that is called shaded monoculture. But the richness of the shaded monoculture, the richness of the trees is usually less than 5. So it means that you mainly have like bananas and mango and palm, that's it. Yeah. Then you have commercial polyculture, where you actually increase the number of trees. So you can have banana, papaya, mango, durian, some native trees that are not productive, for example, that are for timber. So that is called commercial polyculture. And then you have two systems that are under the natural forest. So rustic and the coffee gardens, they are more or less the same. Yeah? So you have like the natural forest, and you have crops underneath it. And usually you have also trees, like fruit trees underneath it. So that's the rustic or coffee garden is the system that they have in the West Valley National Park that I'm interested in. Yeah? And the other thing that is interesting is that we did some studies, and it seems that the infestation of the pest, for example, is lower if you have shade trees. So there are many benefits of having shade trees and an habitat like that, because it's kind of self-sustainable. So there are less pests as well. Why that? Because there are more, for example, ants or spiders that do natural pest control, or birds, for example, etc. The example of the coffee berry borer usually is trapped by spiders or by ants. Yeah. And if you don't have this system, you don't have many ants, you don't have many spiders, so you need to spray the pesticide. But this most of the time is not really working. So you just spray and you get low quality coffee because you just spray it, but it's not. So the quality of the coffee under the natural shade is much higher than if you have monoculture coffee. And as you saw before, also the productivity can stay the same. Yeah? So that is, we need to find evidence that the productivity is the same so that farmers say, oh, we don't need to shift into monoculture. Okay? So that is much of my research, in theory. And also, of course, there are many benefits of having trees in these habitats, because the soil will be better, there will be more protection from the wind, for example. There will be, so if you have like a system like that, like a rustic system, nearby a protected area, that will also act as a buffer. Do you know what is the buffer? So like so usually in conservation of protected areas, so you have a core area, like core area, then you have a hutan konservasi, and then you have an hutan produksi. So the hutan produksi will act as a buffer for the hutan konservasi. And if the hutan produksi is like that, like the rustic system, then it is a better buffer for the conservation area as well. Yeah? So it's a win-win because you have a conservation area more protected. You have good yields for the farmers. You can also grow many crops because with the coffee there, they grow patchouli, they have all the fruit trees, they grow vanilla, they grow cocoa. So you can have multiple crops giving incomes. And you have also the other benefits. So for example, like if the soil is good, then if you plant a tree, it will grow much quicker, much faster in that system than in a like less complex system. So if you plant, so I asked like how, like a durian of maybe 15 meters high, that was only 7 years old. So they're much quicker growing, yeah? So if you have that system, because the soil is much better. You have more pollinators, so you have more reproduction, you have more natural pest control, and you have less pests, and also better quality fruits. Yeah? Not just for the coffee, but also vanilla. If you see the vanilla and the natural, the rustic system is much better than the vanilla exposed to the sun, because there are more pests. Yeah? Just because I like coffee, but yeah, I like coffee, that I also get some coffee. So I don't know if you know, but so the coffee that you eat is mainly coming from two species that are then cultivars of these two species, so Arabica and Robusta. Yeah? So these are two different species. But there are 124 species of wild coffee in the world. So it's not just Arabica and Robusta. So Arabica and Robusta and their cultivars make up 99% of the production of coffee. But there are other species of coffee, of wild coffee. So in Indonesia, there is not much known about wild coffee species. I don't know why, because I expect there will be some wild coffee species apart from Arabica and Robusta, because in Malaysia, for example, there are in Toba, there are. So I think it just is not known yet. So I think some of the communities get their own coffee from the forest without being planted. And I mean, the fruits will be similar, for example. So that is not Arabica or Robusta, but it's like the figure, like it's not neither Arabica, neither Robusta, but so the fruit will be very similar. And some of this wild coffee can be actually used for production. So now, at the moment, there are two species of coffee that are introduced in the production system. And the issue, so the thing is that Arabica is endangered to climate change. So the Arabica is the coffee at the top of the mountains, let's say. So it's endangered by climate change simply because in 20 years, the land for Arabica will move up. Yeah? So there will be less land for Arabica because it's with the global warming, there will be probably Arabica 100 meters higher. Yeah? So the Arabica at 1,000 meters won't grow so well, like in 20 years. So there will be less land. So it's important to find alternatives for Arabica. So but that is just something that I'm interested in. If you ever know about communities using wild coffee, let me know because I'm very interested in that. Like if you have doubts about that. So just a bit more, like, so I've been talking about planets, so I've been talking about the importance of species, biodiversity, in conjunction to profits, yeah, to the yields, yeah. But there is also the element of people in sustainability. So it's very important to consider also social outcomes like gender inequality in the production system, health of the communities, etc. So part of my investigation, I'm very also interested in comparing the communities, like the social dynamics in the communities, gender inequality into the production system, etc. And I expect that this system that has multi-crops and they grow under the natural forest, they also have better income, so the health will be better, the water will be better, etc. The air will be better. So this is just to see the sustainable agriculture is not just checking like how many bugs are in that farm, but there should be more elements to consider. Yeah? And then we go into the importance of considering many different functioning, ecosystem services functioning. So I don't know if you know the term ecosystem services. Ecosystem services is every services that are provided by the nature. So that can be services like soil quality, productivity, neutral carbon cycling. So like carbon is a big service that the nature is providing. There is a lot of carbon training, etc. So it's, whatever is good model or not. So carbon is part of the ecosystem services provided by the nature and water. So it's important to consider a bit all the services together with biodiversity levels. So like health ecosystem should also provide good services like pollination, good productivity for farmers, natural predation, carbon, water, good water, etc. And so that is what we are trying to do a bit. Although we need, this is just a pilot study, so we will do much more later. So we only consider a few of these for now. Yeah? So just briefly, this is what I did in Java before. So in Java you see like there is a polyculture system in Garut. So it's kind of, these are 400 coffee farmers interconnected with other farmers. So they are small orders, so you can see that those farms are kind of separated between each other. Yeah? So there is a lot of people cultivating there. So you need to consider all those smallholder farmers when you work in this polycultural system. And that is connected to that area of forest on the side. Yeah? So that is a protected area. So you see that there is a role in these agroforestry systems, protecting also that area. And that results so many animals coming from the forest and utilizing the farms as well. So what I was interested in there is to see the effect of intensification. So reduction of the complexity of the habitat and use of agrochemicals on the different aspects. So what I found is that the abundance of butterflies, for example, is reduced with the use of chemicals, And I found that the abundance of butterflies is increasing with the shade tree richness, so with the complexity of the farm, yeah? Of the garden. So that is what I've been doing before, yeah? Trying to see how the agricultural intensification affects multiple tasks. This is just for butterflies, but also we did a bit with, this is with camera traps. I don't know, do you know camera traps?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can put camera traps in the forest and they collect the species that pass from there. So we put them also in the coffee gardens and in the forest, and we compared the abundance of the different species. So we saw, for example, on the left there is all the species that are in the coffee gardens. So you can see that more or less, almost all the species are in both areas, apart from the Java leopard, the langur, and the porcupine that were only recorded in the forest. But there are some species, like the badger, the slow loris, etc., that were only found in the coffee garden. So there are some species that prefer actually the agroforestry system than the forest, yeah? Or the seabeds, for example, that we prefer the agroforestry system rather than the forest. So that is what we need to consider as well when we see like this, because there might be, depends on the species that we want to protect. So some species might require us to protect the forest, some species might actually prefer to stay with the farmers. Yeah? So having a good habitat inside the farms is actually better for some species than protecting the forest. So that's and the other thing that we compare is the soil invertebrates. So we use different methods. So why different methods? Because different methods will collect different species. So like pitfall traps will collect different species than the pump traps. So pitfall traps are like holes on the ground. Pump traps are like a tray. Like a tray of different colors, so you can have yellow or blue, etc. So the pan traps will collect mainly, like, for example, hello. The pan traps, for example, will collect more like pollinators. Like the pitfall traps, you collect other species. The beating tray is very good, for example, for spiders. So you need to use a combination of different methods to collect data. Otherwise, you just focus on some species. So that's this is for the invertebrates. And here again, we compare the invertebrates between the farms with like sun exposed, so very low complexity, with the farms with more complexity. And we saw that the influence mainly of the incidence of taxa that were pests were higher in the sun exposed farms. For example. And also we checked like the vegetation time, so it means like the amount of time pollinators visit the flower, and the number of species that actually go pollinate the flower, and that is influenced by the use of agrochemicals. So you have less species that visit flowers if you have more agrochemicals. Yeah?
So how do you do this? Do you count one by one?
So this was done like in each plot. So we set up plots in there. In each plot there are many different plants of coffee. In the flowering season, you can stand in front of a plant for 10 minutes and you count how many pollinators go visit that flowers for 10 minutes, in that 10 minutes. So you record, and you do that for 5 different plants, and then you move to another plot and you do the same.
Okay.
Yeah. So then you can compare the plots, because we also got the data on the use of chemicals by farmers in each plot. Yeah. So we split the plots between the ones that use more organic, a mix, and more chemicals. So, and we saw that that the use of agrochemicals is reducing the number of pollinators. Yeah, about the methods, yeah, we need, yeah, I can share, these are all papers that are published, so they have all the methods, so, yeah, so you can go to check the methods later, or we can discuss later, and then also we check the soil quality, so we also found that the soil quality is affected by the use of chemicals, yeah? And also by the shade complexity. So again, like, so for example, the amount of toxic materials like aluminium, there is more aluminium if you have more chemicals input. So, so it's very important, like, to consider the soil, because the amount of toxic materials in the soil is increasing if you have more chemicals. Yeah? Although here we also found that iron and zinc were lower in the organic, so probably those organic farming were not enough to keep good levels of iron or zinc. So we need to find also to give suggestions to the farmers on how to improve the input of specific materials. Yeah? So we need to, but if you have usually like a good system that is with more trees and more crops, then those values will be good. Like you have enough inputs from the different materials. So these farmers didn't have much complexity of their habitat, so they were lacking a bit of materials. So they still needed some input of organic fertilizers, for example. And we also trained them on how to improve that, yeah? How to select the better organic fertilizer. But if you have a complex system, then you don't need to do that because it's self-sustainable. Yeah? And then also we did some pest control experiments. So we, do you see like on the left is a good coffee berry, on the right is a berry with the coffee berry borer. And after the coffee berry borer, this is not just infestation of the coffee berry borer. After the coffee berry borer infestation, you have a fungal infestation. Yeah? So that is why you get almost all the, well, those batch is ruined, yeah? So you cannot use it. So that's a big issue with many crops. With coffee, they have this issue, like with the coffee berry borer and the fungal infestation after it. And that's a big issue, especially if you don't have enough shade. So if the system is not good enough, then you have more of these issues. Hello. And what we did is we tried something that is found locally by farmers, like the farms, and that is called blue mold. I don't know if you know that. So the farmers actually suggested us to use that, and we put some traps like that, and you see that they are full of coffee berry borers.
Something that we used to trap flies.
Yeah,
no?
yeah.
But
Like in those farms, that was to trap the coffee berry borer if they were placed at before the harvest season. So when the coffee berry borer was really abundant. So do you see like the amount of coffee berry borer that is trapped there? So we actually tested that. And we did like some interventions, like before the harvest period. Yeah? And you see that most of the traps collected, like almost 80% of those traps were collecting coffee berry borer, if you were placing before the harvest period. So we did this intervention, like wide, for 2 different harvest periods, before the harvest periods. And we actually found that the amount of healthy red berries increased by around 20%. So because we collected the amount of healthy red berries. So how to do that? So you go again into each plot, you take different plants and you count how many, you give a proportion of the berries that are healthy. So that's simple. And you do that for 10 plants in each plot. And then we did that before the intervention and after our intervention, and we found that the amount of healthy red berries were increased. Okay. So we did some chemical analysis of what was there, and because we said why And we found particularly interesting something that is on the left, like valeric acid, the epoxide, and the eugenol. They are actually, there are studies that suggest that these are elements that are found either in the fruits, where the coffee berries when they're ripe. So, for example, the coffee berry wort might be attracted by them, or the trans-Z visible M, epoxide, can be found actually in the pheromones of the coffee berry wort. So we think that by just random chance, in that product, there are some elements that attract the coffee berry wort. But we haven't done much more, but we just saw that it was effective and we published this. But we didn't prepare anything, it was just by chance, because this product is not used for coffee berry wort control. But we found that it was effective for coffee berry wort control. And we actually, if it was put just before the harvest period. And it's very cheap to buy this product. So actually now farmers are using that for controlling the coffee berry wort, that system. And they increase the productivity. So it's possible to find these solutions that are, but the best solution is not using anything like that. If you have like a rustic system, then you have the spiders and the ants killing the coffee berry wort. So what we are doing now, and we are considering together with the biodiversity and the ecosystem services provided, like soil, pollination, etc. We are considering the social benefits. So we are considering the yields as well. Yeah? So we are considering the yields, and soon we will also consider more measures of, like, from these villages. So we want to find proof that the systems, like rustic system, actually bring a lot of benefits also for the farmers in terms of productivity and income. Yeah? So what we did, you can see that now. So after we started the research there, they also established like a Manson camping ground. So I was surprised yesterday when I looked for the map to see the Manson camp. Yeah. So Manson is my PhD student who started working there, and apparently they went camping nearby the forest, and now they put the Manson camping ground. So if you search for Manson camping ground, you see their picture while camping. I asked her, and she knew, but she didn't agree, but she knew, so the first thing I did once I saw that, hey Sophie, do you know that there is a camping ground with your name? So apparently they really enjoy to stay with my students. So you see, like, this is, that village there is Yehbuah. It's very interesting because they are producing, so you can see like the line of the forest, more or less, I cannot point it, but you see the line of the forest is starting when the road stops, more or less, yeah?
Yeah.
Until the Manson camping ground. So the Manson camping ground is actually nearby the Hutan Konservasi, the entrance of the Hutan Konservasi, yeah? So you see that from that road to the Manson camping ground, there is they cultivate. So all that area is cultivation of vanilla, patchouli, cocoa, coffee, many trees like durian, etc. Yeah? Nuts, a lot of nuts. So you see that, and it looks from the map as a forest, but there is so much that they are producing there. Yeah? So what we want to do is to try to see which combination of crop trees is giving better benefit in terms of ecosystem services, biodiversity, and also income. within that system, and also comparing to the system at the bottom of that. So below, when there is the road, they still have crops. But that is just a polyculture system. So it's not under the forest. So we are comparing also, we are taking plots also there, and comparing those polyculture systems with those rustic systems. And within the rustic system, there are some that are different than others. So some, for example, they just plant coffee underneath. So we can see which crop is better in providing biodiversity and crop and incomes, yeah, for the farmers. So what we do, I don't remember the number of plots because I think they are around 50, more or less spread along the area. So there are 25 by 25 plots. In each plot, we got soil samples that we are doing the analysis for chemical components and also total fungi, bacteria. We do pollinator observations, so like how many butterflies, for example, are passing by. So you can do that with transects, for example, for butterflies. So you just walk slowly and count how many butterflies are passing within 5 meters from you. Or you can do the pollinators of specific crops. For example, as I said before, you can sit in front of a plant and count how many pollinators are going there for during 10 minutes, for example. So there are many different methods to estimate the pollinator, the pollination services. Then we are doing, of course, we do the vegetation structure, so we take note of all the trees that are in there, all the crops that are in there, and we do the yields. So we ask the farmers to assess in that 25 by 25 meter plots how much they produce, and they know, because they know exactly, they can predict in a year how much a plant is producing, because that's their life, so they have to estimate that. So what we are asking is the yields of the different crops in each plot. Then we are collecting birds. So with a local guide, he knows all the local names. So we explain in the methods, So it just sitting mainly inside a plot and counting all the birds that are using that plot in 10 minutes. So that is called point count set. So again, in 10 minutes you give a set time and you count how many birds are using that plot. And of course all the how many birds per each species are using that plot. Yeah? So that is called the point sampling method. And you can do a series of data analysis with that, because you can calculate also the abundance of each bird if you use something like that. And then we did pitfall traps and plant traps for invertebrates. And so, what we do now is we do have all this data from these different things, and we will link all of this to the yields. So we want to see how many, so the benefits of having this structure for the farmers and for biodiversity, so that we can say to the farmers, oh, this plot is very productive because you have this crop, and that brings all these sets of animals in that plot. Yeah? So we want to link biodiversity, soil quality, etc., to the yields. So that is what we are doing. Yeah? And of course, we also put camera traps in there, so we see like also the mammals. And of course, we want to do, this is just a pilot study, so what we want to do is to extend this sample method to all the villages that are using the Brookes in the West Valley National Park. So there are 30 villages, so we piloted that, so we can see, we can go to the other villages and see which production types that they do. And I guess some of them will be just polyculture or even monoculture, so we can compare those systems as well. And at the end, we have data from the same system with many different management types, and we can give the data to the local forestry department, for example, and they can use that to see, oh, if you do this system, you have much more crops and much more income than if you do this monoculture system, for example. And at the same time, you have also less management expenses because there are no pests. Yeah. So that is the idea. And here you see just some picture of the crops that are in that area. And of course now we just finished collecting the data. So I cannot present any data analysis because it's like, I still don't have all the data. But that's, I hope you got the idea of that. And if you want to get more, you see my email. And so that is what we are doing. And so I'm open to questions, and if you have clarification for the methods, etc.
Thank you, Marco. Now I can see why Vincent said you are good at doing data analysis.
Yeah, but this we
very rich of data.
Yeah, but I didn't show any data analysis apart from some plots that.
But your previous articles contains a lot of data and.
So this is the structure will be same. So we have the many plots, so like that with different conditions. But the question are a bit different because before was just agricultural intensification. Now we want to put the element of yields, so the income for the farmers, because that's we think is the key part. Because the farmers, you can tell them, if you use less agrochemicals, you have more butterflies coming to your field, but they don't care. So, but if you say, if you do this, then you get more income, then they will change their practices. So income is very important. It's the most important part, to link to that. So that is why now I want to include the socio-economic parts of that, to make a better, to make it more impactful, and also to change the policies as well, because it's the forestry department can use our data to inform farmers. So if you do this, you can get benefits. Not just having more spiders, because they don't want them. But if you say that the spider is improving their production, then they might consider to have the spider. If you say that the spider is, the other thing that I want to do is to check the quality of the different crops. Now that I didn't have time, but maybe also the quality is better. Like vanilla grown under a certain system, it might be better than vanilla grown under the shade, for example. So we need to check the quality of that, not just the productivity, but also the quality. And that we can do also because you said that there is a nutrition lab here. So we can do the testing of the quality potential, I think. But so that's the plan. So together with agricultural intensification, adding the element of yields and benefits, more benefits for the farmers, rather than just theoretical benefits. So you have better soil, you have more butterflies, because then they have to link that to other potential benefits. So they have to be aware that having better soil is giving a better quality, for example. But some of them they won't care if they don't see a good productivity. So if you put the productivity, then they will care.
Because the productivity is the most important thing.
Question?
Go.
Question? It is quite interesting between you change some of the methodology from the agroforestry to the social economic impact. So the first thing that I need to know about after you collecting data from the forest, and after you find the analysis data, so then move to the social economic, or you
So you do a single model. So what happens is you put all this data into one model. So you have your data as so by plot. So for each plot we collect all this data, and then all this data will be put into one single model to predict. There are many different ways of doing that. So you can have generalized linear mixed model, additive models, structure equation models. So this goes into modeling, but all of this data will be put into the same models to assess, like what are the best prediction of the yields, for example. So that is not. So it just entails adding some parameters in the model. But the model will be the same. So all this data will be collected, will go in just one single model. And you can do like with the, if you collect data from other sciences, well, you can still do one single model because you just add data to predict yields or whatever. So so that goes. So it's not that you have separate correlations. So you just do. There are models that will allow you to put all these parameters to predict yields, for example. And there are models that will allow you to do not just one dependent variable, but to put many relationships.
using structural equation model.
Yeah, so structure equation models, that will allow you to assess complex relationships. But if you have a generalized linear mixed model, you have just one dependent variable. So you have yields, for example, influenced by all those soil and biodiversity, etc., crop structure, etc. But you can have like more complex systems when you have, for example, soil, like invertebrates influence soil quality, and then soil quality influences yields. So you can have steps, different steps. So that depends on our aims and research questions.
Yeah.
So it's so you can have so mainly generalized linear mixed models. You have one dependent variable, and you have a list of factors. Yeah. While structure equation models or other models, you have variables that are also intermediate variables. So you can have some variables influencing this other variable that is influencing this other variable. And in ecology, many times you have you don't have just you have intermediate variables. So I haven't prepared anything with the modeling, but if we can do so. The theory is step one. So you can have structure equation models, quite good, but then it's not just that. There are many different models that allow you to have more complex relationships.
I just use superposition model.
Yeah, so you can that are called path analysis.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I just know that I can use the history data.
So those are mainly called path analysis in ecology. So in ecology, so there are many different types of structure equation models. So if you put like latent variables, but in ecology you just observe variables. So if you only have observed variables in structure equation models, they are called path analysis.
Path analysis.
Yeah, path analysis, and there are like specific R packages for that. Do you use that? Yeah.
See, in economic you use a lot of that.
We use
Path
path analysis.
Okay. I mean it's so we in the lately we are tending to use R simply because you find that if you learn R, then you can do everything in that. And they are improving like there are packages coming out for everything. So yeah, so R will be if you start learning R, that will change your world. Because then you have much more possibility for data analysis. And it's free, so it's
It used to be using R.
yeah.
I'm just using some SPSS. It's really old.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to learn about R, Python, but
But so SPSS is more interactive. Yes. It's, SPSS, and also it's not free. So so it's good for like basic like regressions and linear models and correlation and non-parametric tests.
yes.
But then if you want to do something more advanced, you need to use R or C. So R I think will be the thing like to start developing because that's that will change completely like the way to
how is the world? Change how you need to learn about R.
Do you use R? No. Some of you? No.
No. Who using R? They're from social science.
But you can use R also for social science, like all the. So if you have like all the questionnaire data, that can be analyzed through quantitative analysis. Like structural equation models, they are used in social science. So you don't just do qualitative analysis, you can do quantitative analysis. And R is can be used also. With R, there are packages for the analysis of teams, like emerging from questionnaires, so you can quickly find how many teams are coming out from the like a script or something like that. So
Kuta, what is your research in that?
Words actually.
Words, yeah. You find something interesting?
Some that for me interesting is the tanam tubuh and angen. So angen is the way like the rustic system, but in Balinese terms.
So we have the terms for rustic systems, more or less.
More or less, yeah.
And they practice that in Yehbuah.
Start to practice
In water
that.
fruit now.
Do the name change between areas or are the same?
I think the same in
The West Valley.
in the West Valley.
Do
But
they
I'm not
change
sure.
with other areas, like in East Valley?
Perhaps because our forest is in West Valley. Most of the forest in Bali.
Yeah, in East Valley you can have some, but it's a lot of polyculture as well. Without the forest is left, it is gone. Yeah, but you still have some big trees left. So there can be some areas where you have some more complex structures. But also, it would be interesting to add more like social elements if you have like in the investigation, because the idea is to see how, for example, if the villages that are more cohesive, they act in a different way in protecting the forest, like identifying the leaders, like how many leaders are in the village, and is the community cohesiveness like influencing the conservation outcomes.
Yeah, I think it's will fit with social political sciences as well.
Yeah.
Between R and Python, I just learned some tableau.
Tableau.
Yeah, tableau.
I don't know. Is it another software?
Yes, another software tableau, and then Power BI. But all around the world will be talking about R and Python. And I tried to learn Python, but it's really difficult because the mathematics, like some
Formulas.
yeah, like some formulas that we need to learn.
Mainly, I think R is better to learn because then you have specific packages. So if you learn the R language, then there are specific packages that you just need to learn how to use them. So if you have like general R, like R language tutoring, then everything will be easier.
So start learning from
Like the base, the R language. I think that's my advice, like to start having some R language, because R is free, and it's now most of the journals, international journals, they want R. So at least in most of the fields.
Thank you for the advice.
So I think it's SPSS is fine.
But it's really all not up to
It's so it's an old version. R is free.
It's free.
So for example, UKM, they're using R. UKM are using R. And they in terms of modeling, they're doing quite well actually. So it's, R is it's very important.
Maybe we need to do our workshop. Guys?
But starting with the like basic language.
Yes. Any questions? Discussions?
So what are your field of research?
Ratna, what are your fields of research?
Well, my research mainly focuses on gender.
Gender.
So maybe sometimes we can analyze maybe how the competitors how they work in their, do they work on farmers?
So for example, with gender, because part of the sustainability part is about gender inequality. So if there are some elements of gender that we can include in the narrative, that would be very important. But I don't know. I don't know much about that study. So especially if you have some good example of what you can do, then we can try to integrate that in this research. Because now we want to expand into more the social indicators, and then put the same framework into all the other divisions. So if there is some suggestions on what to do in terms of social indicators, that will be very interesting.
There is a case in Aceh, which the village of the community, especially in women, they make some group they call a warrior to protect the land area.
Okay. So like women, initiatives
to protect the forest area in order to do so.
In Aceh?
In Aceh.
I haven't found it.
Sorry? In Bali you haven't found?
I haven't found women's community.
But it can be, for example, interesting to see what are the roles of women, like in protecting the forest, or what are the jobs that they do, or in the different villages, and see how that's related to protection of the forest.
I have no idea how can I jump next. Travel things.
Like something like building.
Yeah, like how
building
they maybe how they plan the lands. Which one is for protected areas? Which one is for
also for example, we want to build some facilities there, or like I don't know, something like can be an arboretum, and we can have some like a structure that is more sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now the idea is also to see if we can like provide facilities for improving the local production. So for a distillation facility for distilling essential oils. Like a processing facility for coffee, something like that. And that we can think about how to make it more sustainable. For example. So there is room for sustainable building and of course I'm very interested, for example, in urban greening. So it can be like, for example, seeing what is the benefits that having some patches of greens in town is providing.
In your diagram, we have big trees and then small trees and then the coffee. What if the coffee change to urban? We still have the forest, but not the plantation, but houses and.
I mean that can be another
So we can what they call in the UK, they call it co-dwelling with nature.
Yeah, and so you can assess, for example, what is the what's inside those trees, for example. What are the are they providing like home for birds? What are the pollinators that are in that side? How to improve what is the best combination of trees to have together with houses, like so that you have these pollinators and birds. So that can be a similar thing, like so you can compare different areas and see which areas have better biodiversity and better, more number of trees, more number of birds, more pollinators, better soil. So you can do the same. So it's just instead of you can do plots actually even
plots in city.
Plots in city and do the same.
Do the same methods like you did.
To estimate the ecosystem services and biodiversity protection given by urban patches.
Okay. Good idea. Anyone want to jump into the project because we are thinking about future projects?
And it's easy, for example, to have something urban as well for students because it's easy to travel with different passage. So if there are ideas, so like now you know what I'm doing mainly. If there are ideas to jump for like for social elements, like language. Especially the social elements, I need some help because I mean I know to analyze those kind of things. I'm lacking a bit of theory of social elements, gender inequality. So integrating social elements into this research would be very important. Like cohesiveness of the villages, leaderships in the villages.
I think your research is related to this, Anas. Something, the one that you did in Sumba.
In Sumba, it's like
policy.
not
How?
privatization. But yes, privatization and commodification.
Oh, privatization.
So
Yes, privatization, commodification, land.
So you can do the same, like participation, in those villages in preserving the forest, for example.
Yes. But in Sumba Timur there is no forest. It's only savannah.
What methods do you use for?
I'm using qualitative research. And then I'm using snowball because it's really difficult for interviewing some key person because the company that relate to the case is like from some oligarchy in Jakarta. So the first and the largest sugar company, the first and the largest sugar company in East Timur, in Nusa Tenggara Timur, they built up the sugar company,
Sugarcane.
They built up sugarcane in Sumba Timur, which is there's no water there. So they really like using all the water there and then make the village really become so
Thirsty. Because
Drown.
they monopolize water.
Yes, they monopolize the water.
The big company, they monopolize water, the crops, and then the village, they get the water.
But for example, within the villages in the West Valley National Park, there will be some villages where more scaffolds, like cutting more trees, for example. So it will be interesting what are the difference, why they do that. So like socially, like why? So is it lacking some leadership, or is it because I don't know?
All the villagers, all the farmers there became the labor in sugarcane country.
So that's different. But they don't have like big monoculture there in the West Valley National Park. But there's some villages that will still cut the forest. And it will be good to understand why some villages they are more keen to protect the forest, and some villages they are. So it will be very important to integrate the social elements in this research.
Yeah.
And also there is not much on social input into conservation. So what are the indicators that the social that the group will cut the forest or will do some damage to the forest? Are there some social indicators, for example? So that should be very interesting. In this setting, we can study that because we have the health of the forest, and then if we have the social elements and we expand to all the villages in the West Valley National Park, and maybe also means then it would be good. I just need to know if there are some indices from social science that we can add. Because for quantitative analysis, we need to use indices. So like welfare index or like instability index, gender inequality index, something like that. So there should be some indices that can be integrated into this model.
Yeah.
I'm open to suggestions because now we just started this pilot study. So the plan is to continue for years.
Yeah, I think these young lecturers, they have also the responsibility to do research and to publish papers. And I think you have a lot of experience in doing that in your part in Java.
Yeah, but also, yeah, if we have, I'm interested in adding the social elements. So if there is a possibility of doing that, I will get to other, because I will get to other journals as well. Because sometimes if you add multidisciplinary aspects, then you get to different journals.
Yeah.
And I like to go to different journals, not just I get bored. And yeah, so we can also discuss about people wanting to come to Brookes.
Kalau ada yang mau kuliah ke Brookes, Oxford. Anas. Anas, do you want to go to UK?
Justru ya.
Do we have political sciences at Brookes? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do have.
And social science, and there is politics, international politics, law.
Law, yeah, law, I know.
They're all in social sciences.
Let's start searching for Brookes.
And we can send also, maybe some of my students want to come here to do, I don't know, a PhD or research. Maybe Sophie.
Sophie.
And then she can do training.
Yeah. We do cross. We send Anas to Brookes, we send Sophie to Warmadewa. Guys?
Ada dari law juga.
Law ya? We have law ya in social science.
Yeah, I would prefer if it's linked to my research. So
Your research, it will be easier.
But yeah, so we can have like interdisciplinary.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there is a lot of collaboration between, like our department and like business, law. But like Vincent is in social science, the social science.
Okay, any other thing to discuss?
So we're on the process of making a climate change study center, but we are really trying to find what's the special topics that we have to, because most of our are from social studies, so maybe we can help.
I mean, it's if you do something like sustainable agriculture, that can be linked to climate change, because if you have like some system like that are sustainable, then they are more resilient. So you can call like sustainable agriculture to face climate change, for example. And then we add the element also of the social element, because sustainable agriculture is a lot of working with communities.
I read somewhere that agricultural activity is the biggest contributor to the carbon. Is it not?
Yeah, I mean, the carbon, like, I mean, if you have like farming, it's producing a lot of CO2, like, so if you have monocultures and you use a lot of agrochemicals, it's importing a lot of CO2, so it will damage the climate. But if you have a system that is more rustic, that's keeping the equilibrium, and it's more resilient. Yeah? So that will fit very well with the climate change narrative. Because I mean, like sustainable agriculture to promote climate change. Sustainable agriculture, then you can have it with many different faculties involved, because you have agriculture, you have biology, you have social science, you can have law, because you can talk about gender inequality and policies.
Yeah.
But then you have to decide.
Okay, thank you, Marco, for your sharing.
Thank you for just listening to our project so that we can start making it big.
Yeah, like 3 months ago when we start discussing it, To be honest, I don't really understand. Okay, I start thinking, who can I grab to jump into this project? And then I find Kulta first, and then we start figuring out yoga, and then we start inviting them.
I think the easiest way will be also to visit that rustic system and like another system that is different, and you compare them, because you can see it. You can see like that this is better than the other, and they still produce a lot. So it's and also they want Pagus wants to be.
And now we are thinking about how to further this.
Because for example, now that we have this framework, at least someone can do the same and try to do the same in another village and see how it works. And then we can add the social element.
Okay, good. There are young lecturers here.
Socio-economics.
Agung is from economics, Anas is from social sciences, Dita from social sciences. And I start forgetting names. Pernah also from social and political sciences.
So socio-economics is fitting into the
framework.
The social, the sustainable agriculture. It's actually very important.
Ratna is the only from law. This is from law.
Can fit with the gender.
Always fit. Goldina is from economic and business. What are you researching?
My future is
Because the thing that
Your recent research, not future.
No.
my research. My recent research is the topic is the sustainability. Sustainability.
Related to sustainability.
Sounds like your research. So about sustainability development.
Sustainable development of businesses or?
In hospitality industry. Actually, So I also find about people, planet, and profit to achieve the sustainability development goals.
Sustainable development goal can fit. So if you have like sustainable agriculture, then of course you link to sustainable development goals. So
I think everyone can jump into the project.
So I'm always open to ideas.
Ideas.
Now you know what we do and
I'm thinking that maybe the thing that we have done can be the seeds of the climate change study Center for Climate Change, because these young lecturers are now trying to establish climate change studies and research studies, and I think this can be the seeds of what can be,
so that
can be
easily to link.
It has a very strong link with that.
Because one of the members from the initiative center studies said that he is interested with the coffee issues, but he doesn't know how to
execute the idea.
He only know the coffee.
The coffee.
The coffee. Because he doesn't know how to explore the idea, how to link in with the climate change and the agroforestry. And how the rustic and agriculture, that's really important.
So we invite him to this project, but
that's why
he's not doing that.
The result is different tastes of coffee, but something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you can put that into the same order, because then we want to see, like, if different areas with different practices, they have better quality, for example. So the taste of quality is very, the taste of coffee is also important as well. So yeah, that's part that we haven't done it yet, but we can do that. And not just of coffee, but with the taste of the nutritional content in general. Like quality in general. Vanilla, cocoa,
Cocoa is not popular here in Bali.
It's really popular in Jawa.
Oh, in Jembrana.
In Jembrana. The largest process cocoa in Jawa is.
Yeah.
They have a lot of cocoa in Yehbuah.
Yehbuah, how?
Full of cocoa. Big fruits.
Kunta, any other things?
Still thinking how to fit the research.
So why people are always thinking about the monoculture? Because of the
Because it's easier.
because it is here.
Because it's, and also it's promoted, like by many companies, they like to promote monoculture because then they get profits from the people selling agrochemicals, and then they can sell the seeds. So that's just business. Big companies, they want to promote monoculture. So the traditional way is actually not a monoculture, it's a boosting system. So but that was actually working better in terms of everything. But actually the profits of, like, the big companies want monocultures. Because that's it, yeah. So the more like international big companies you get, the more monoculture you get.
Yeah, because
Because they get profits from selling all the other chemicals.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Because in 2017 and 18, I did some reports from Germany that the focusing issues is about agriculture, sustainability agriculture.
yeah.
So the case is the patchouli. Patchouli. The interesting part, the issue is about the patchouli is popular from the Sumatra and then moved to Java and now moved to Sulawesi. So why they move? So the reportage, the data from our interview said that because of the soil, the quality of the soil, that's why they move. So I'm thinking about why the issue of the soil. So after the soil is not good,
Yeah, because
they move
because that's the same system of the slash and burn agriculture. So like cutting the forest, burning it to make the soil fertile, but it only lasts 2 years and then they move. So because with the inputs of chemicals, the soil is very productive at the beginning, but then after 2 years it's no more.
Yes. After 2
So
years.
that is the issue with, and then it takes, if you have a soil that loses all this productivity, then it takes 20 years to go back to the same soil. So it's, but that is the common practice of agriculture and input of agrochemicals. And that is just convenience and where the big money goes. But the local farmers, they promote that system. So they need to keep the forest for a long time.
Sorry.
Yeah, no.
I have an urgent call for my dean. Bye bye. Nice to meet you.
So that's the issue, and that's sad, but that's the issue. Yeah. That's because if you cultivate in a certain way, like monoculture with the input of chemicals, the soil will be depleted in 2 years, 3 years, and it's no more productive the same. They just move.
Yeah, they only
Because they
move.
have funds. Yeah, they just have funds. The big funds, these big companies, so they don't care about what's left to these people. Because they move to other areas and pay for concessions and then get profits and then move. And then what's left to these people is just arid soil. And then since they move, because also these people, they will be happy to, local people will be happy to have them because they give a job. But then they don't think that after 5 years they will not have a job and they will not have productivity anymore. So it's that's the same issue like
in many parts of the world.
Many parts of the world. Yeah. Like in Madagascar, even the local people they cultivate slash and burn, and they do that by themselves. So the local practices is just cutting the forest and burning, producing some monoculture like cassava or what else, and after 2-3 years they have to move. And the same principle applies to all the monocultures. Because the monoculture, they cannot survive until there is an input of agrochemicals. And even if you don't put agrochemicals, like in the case of cassava, the soil will be still depleted after 2-3 years because some crops will just deplete the soil. So the topsoil is removed completely, eroded completely.
That's not sustainable farming.
But that is where all the money goes, in monocultures. So big companies, they just want monoculture because they think about just staying in one place for 2-3 years. So they don't care what's left.
We call it vertical ecology. So when the big companies come into the area, for example in Kalimantan, they cultivated the monoculture like palm oil to produce CPU. And then when the soil is not fertile, they left. So they left nothing to the community. So they very good picture of the.
But the community accept this because they see short-term benefits. They don't know that they will have nothing left in
most of cost and benefits is on the effect and the impact very for the.
That is why I try to show the benefits of this system. Because then we can inform the government, the policies, and say, so if we have this, you can still have much more productivity and more sustainable because then, so you can grow patchouli in this like community forest. So you can grow patchouli there. You don't have to just open meadow with just patchouli. You can grow patchouli there. Patchouli is like it's full of patchouli there because so it's growing together with coffee, cocoa, vanilla. So you find patchouli, it's becoming like an herb, so it's spreading. So you don't even have to plant it because it's just spreading naturally. Actually, they're not using much of the patchouli, so they have to remove it. So they have to throw the patchouli away because they have too much. So that is why we want to put like an essential oil distillery because so that they can produce patchouli there, they can see the benefits of that. At least with the old patchouli that they have, because they are full of patchouli. Like the underside, like the grass, there is patchouli. So it's kind of like a native grass. It's spreading.
Spread.
Yeah. And the same with vanilla. With this system, they just cut vanilla and they throw on the ground, and the vanilla grows. So then, because if you have such a system, then it's self-resilient. So it's producing for them, it's producing much more. But the big company, they don't want local production and local addiction. They want to pay labor cheap and to get profits and to sell them these agrochemicals so that they use that. so they can get benefits from that. Yeah. So I really believe that. So that's all my research is try to show that about this, that all these practices are not sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah, Indonesia is one of the biggest producers of the essential oil for confectionery, and also the cloth.
So they have clothes there as well. Like the Yehbuah. Yeah. So it's just the big companies that don't want it. So that's because of the profits. But then the local communities will not be resilient. So they will lose everything. So if they open to these big companies, then they do the worst choice. But then the thing is that also the government is promoting that. So we need to go to the government and say, oh, this is not sustainable practice, bring in that, and then say, okay, so if you do this instead, then you have much more production, you can get, the other idea is to get taxes from non-timber forest products so that the government will see the benefits of that. Because maybe the government is also happy because they get taxes from this so they need to see the benefits of having non-timber forest products. It's like paying taxes on that. So, because at the moment, like, it's not really regulated the taxes paid on non-timber forest products. So it should be a system where the business in buying these non-timber forest products pay taxes, so that the government can also track these non-timber forest products. Yeah. So it's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's complicated according to law, social economics, not just biology. And also, how to say these things better so that the government will, and also how to convince local farmers to go I think mostly how to convince the government that it's not good to have these multinational, international companies because they, at the end, you will have no more land and then we move to another country.
So how about the local communities in Yehbuah? Are they resilient or?
They're very rich. I mean, if you see, if you see a field there, like they get so much.
They get much from the forest.
Yeah, they get so much that they probably get the salary of like a professor here. Probably. Maybe some of them. Because they get so much.
And more than you.
You just need to. They just I mean they have vanilla. So even with just vanilla, but they produce like 20 kilos, 21 ton of vanilla. So some of these fields they produce 2 tons of vanilla or something like that.
Wow.
And vanilla. And just vanilla, and then they have coffee there,
But they still sell to the that middleman.
Yeah, but they said they should sell to businesses. So but the thing is that the businesses should then pay taxes. But there should be legal businesses. So you cannot ask them to pay taxes, but you should ask the businesses who buy it. So they should. But so they produce a lot. So Kunta, you've been there. Have you seen the rustic systems?
Yeah. And they are very happy with the system in their forest, community forest, and they are so proud of their water.
Yeah, they have a lot of water. Because if you have all the trees, so you have the retention of water. So you will never have issues with water. They get water. The stream that they get is never getting out of water. Running out of water. she saw that, so she's thinking now. I will know all this data, and then like all this data of the yields. So you can see how much a 25 by 25 plot will produce. But I mean, it's and what that effects on it.
What I'm thinking actually is how to make this pilot project as something bigger, involving many more departments, like multidisciplinary research project. So it's not only from the agriculture, but now how me myself influence or persuade people from my department, from the language, and then from the social science.
Yeah, social science would be because we need like social science and economics like this, because you just need to find the social economic indices to add to the models. And law again influencing policies, and especially including gender inequality. Language we can work out like so actually with web my research lead is working on the language development. So actually it will be very interesting for you to read what they are doing, because then there's working out with genetics of language. But yeah, now it will be interesting to see like the social aspect of language, how that fits into agriculture. But I don't have the basis to the methods for that, so but I can check what to do and see what's but I need to see to have an idea of it.
But mostly we use the social methods.
Okay, it's lunchtime.
Thank you for this.
Thank you again, Marco. Esa mana? Oh. It's a tradition here in Warmadewa that everyone who speaks will get certificate.
Okay. So I can bring it home and put in my house or my office.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can we have a picture so
yes.
that I can also?
Yes.
Yeah.